Chicago River used to be almost exclusively industry. No pleasure boats. And all of this river was just teeming with industry. So we're going to talk about the past, the present, and the future. We've touched on the past a little bit, so it's only right we talk about this bridge right in front of us. That's Cherry Street Bridge. Chicago used to be, or still is technically, but we were known as a city of moving bridges. We had more bridges that opened, moved, swung out than any other city in the world except for one. Somebody have a guess?
Milwaukee.
It's actually Gary, Indiana.
Okay.
No, it's Amsterdam.
Oh.
And they got an ocean, so you know we're doing pretty well. But this bridge was completed in 1902. This is the oldest bridge we're going to see today. It is called a bobtail swing bridge. So as opposed to opening in the middle or just going straight up, it swings out. So when it would function, it would lift up and then swing out directly towards us. Now we'll talk about the present a little bit. This bridge right here, North Avenue Bridge, that is a suspension bridge. Now obviously, the most famous suspension bridge, longest suspension bridge in the world is the Golden Gate Bridge. And that's because it sits over a large swath of water. A lot of wind blows through it, so it needs to have that sway. This is actually the shortest suspension bridge in the US that cars can drive on. From industrial to residential, now to tourism. So that salt factory we talked about earlier, that is now a salt shed, a concert venue, where all sorts of young folks go every night. Our lot gets packed. We have an REI and a Whole Foods down there, kind of stalwarts of gentrification there. When they show up, you know something's going on in the neighborhood. But the next thing I'm going to tell you about is our first building of the tour. This is one directly to our right, the Mars Wrigley building. Modernist style of architecture. Now we're going to talk about a lot of different styles of architecture today, but the three big ones are modernism, and that's anything that looks like a big USB stick or a Wi-Fi modem sticking out of the ground. Trump Tower, Sears Tower, or Willis Tower as the true Chicagoans know. Any of those big skyscrapers that look like an evil lair for a villain in a superhero movie, those are modernist buildings. The idea is we're going to build a big building. We don't care where it goes. We want it to look impressive. This is the response to that. We're drifting. This is a big boat. But behind the big boat is our response to that. Postmodernism. Before any plans are laid, they are looking at the surroundings. And this building is a great example. We got that sandstone brick. Obviously, Chicago. We have all sorts of lakefront. That represents the sand. We have a big statuesque figure at the front, resembling a lighthouse. You can kind of see now, crashing over the top is a big glass greenhouse. Now Mars Wrigley grows all of their ingredients in-house. So this is the future of candy here. That's why I say we're talking about the future. And before you ask, yes, I have seen an Oompa Loompa escape. They're very brutal about it. I rounded them up in the boat. We're going to talk about one of my favorite figures in Chicago history, while also talking about some architecture history. Are y'all familiar with the name Montgomery Ward?
Yep.
Happy to hear it. Usually it's a bunch of blank stares. So.
Yeah.
Montgomery Ward was a traveling salesman, Midwest local. He spent the first half of his career selling anything he could door to door. And then at one point, he had the brilliant realization, well, if people just let me know what they want, I can send it to them. I don't have to ship my wares all around. Well, you do have to ship your wares all around, but you don't have to carry it all, hoping to sell it. And that was the birth of the mail order catalog. He beat Sears and Roebuck's by a couple of years. A lot of people think they were the first mail order catalog, but it was Montgomery Ward. And at its height, you could buy anything under the sun, from the size of a paperweight to an entire house. And the train cars. This bottom floor of what is now the Groupon building here, there were 16 different train lines. The reason that Chicago is in the central time zone is because this was the center hub of the American train system. Montgomery Ward had a big thing to do with that, as well as William Ogden. This building is a prairie-style building. That bridges the gap between that modern and that postmodern. It's focusing more about vertical as opposed to horizontal. It's being informed by the area, but not completely. You're still getting that boxy feel. It's not a rounded shape, but it does kind of curve to the river. It is also called the Chicago style of architecture. Louis Sullivan, who was a apprentice of Frank Lloyd Wright, one of the fathers of Chicago or prairie style architecture. This warehouse here is kind of incredible because it's not like many warehouses that you will see today. Very beautiful building. These long decorative strips of brick. That was a huge thing. Montgomery Ward loved architecture. He was also a futurist. So one of the features on these buildings is there are no corner offices. If you look at the windows at the corner, they're small. Those are all stairwells. Behind this big long building, there are two more buildings. Kind of a higher one there. That was designed by the man who designed the Twin Towers. That was part of their executive building. The more apartment-looking complex, you can see that green statue up front. That was their tax building. So this was a huge Montgomery Ward campus. Now, Sears bought this probably about 15, 20 years ago. Before, obviously, that did not go too well for them. And then they sold it to the Groupon company. When Sears was like redoing it, kind of cleaning out all the Montgomery Ward stuff, they found a giant safe in the bottom. Well, this could be anything. They sold everything under the sun. You know, they have a long storied history. Who knows what could be in here? And they opened it up. They found a bunch of filing cabinets, and they found 200 pairs of rusty roller skates. Now, the reason for this is one of my favorite things. Montgomery Ward, like I said, a futurist. He cared about the people. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. If you needed to get from one end of the building to the other to talk to this, that, or the other about whatever shipment, you had to walk. So he gave every single employee a pair of roller skates, and they would roller skate up and down these long hallways. I think it's your eye out for is all of these bridges have bridge houses, and most of them are in different styles of architecture. They're not manned these days, they're mostly used for storage, but obviously they used to all be manned, and they would be bringing the bridges up and down all the time. They do it, I think, once a month downtown, so they can let the sailboats out into the locks, but you don't get to see the bridges move very often.
His name Joseph.
One of my all-time favorite buildings is the Merchandise Mart here. Big old concrete building. Takes up 2 city blocks. It is currently the second largest concrete structure on the earth after the Pentagon. And if you're curious as to how much bigger the Pentagon is, nobody knows. Can't get that kind of information. This was designed to be a beacon of human consumerism, right? This was supposed to be a grand showroom. All of the city of Chicago could outfit their entire house. You got, you know, furniture, wallpaper, all that stuff. If you were buying your house from Montgomery Ward, odds are you were going to the Merchandise Mart to pick out all your fineries or wallpaper. This was designed by a architecture firm called Smith, Anderson, Gross, and White. The head architect was a man named Shaw. And his dream, he was near the end of his career. You know, I'm trying to give it to him. Shaw was near the end of his career. He understood great changes were about to come in the space of architecture. He knew soon after his death they would be able to build buildings much taller than he could ever dream of. But he wanted to make something that would last the test of time with the technology and materials he had now. So he made this beautiful, giant building. Up until 2007, it had its own zip code. Now it has 2. It's a big old building. It is a Art Deco style building. My favorite fact about this building is nowadays, at night, it becomes the largest projection screen in the world. Chicago has a art show called Art on the Mark. They have these massive projectors. Once we go under Franklin Street Bridge, if you look to the right, you'll see this big old box of projectors. They project a light show with local Chicago art, local Chicago music. Onto that, they cover the entire thing. It's pretty spectacular to see. I think they do it every night. And the most amazing thing is, they don't project any light into the windows. So if you are working there is the projector right there, that big set of black boxes.
I'm not recommend the show now. It's gonna be gorgeous tonight.
I tell you, this view never gets old.
This is amazing.
No better way to see the city.
Nope.
Coming down here at night and do some night tours here. It is.
I can imagine.
The reason that the architecture tours are so popular here is because of the diversity of styles. So this is a great example, 55 West Wacker here. That is a brutalist style building. Came out of World War II. Germany. That is one big piece of concrete with all of the panes of glass built into the mold. They were trying to make buildings that could withstand bombs. Lots of college campuses, lots of libraries, lots of dorms are brutalist style architecture. You know, give a little meaning. Got to protect the youth. Got to protect the education. So that's a very I hesitate to even say beautiful building, but a very interesting building certainly. I'm just going to go down the line here, starting with the gold-topped building right there, the Carmine and Carbide building. This is where the D-cell battery was invented. I gotta clear up a little misconception. If you come to Chicago, you ask anybody, they're gonna say every single building Capone was hanging out in. They'll say, oh yeah, that Jimmy John's on Clark, that was Capone's favorite Jimmy John. A lot of people say, oh, Capone, he hung up in the Gold Tower. He did. He was dead before it was even built. But he did hang out in the Jewelers building, which is that other tower to the left there. Now that gold tower is 17 karat gold. So if you guys have some spare time in a grappling hook, let me know. We can get up there.
Yeah.
Get some cash. It is built to resemble something. Anybody have a guess as what it is built to resemble? I'll give you a hint. This was built during the Prohibition.
A bottle.
Champagne bottle.
Yeah.
It was built as kind of a up yours to the city. To the left of that building, we have one with kind of these white kind of curves on the outside. That is the second tallest building in the world designed by a woman. Jeannie Gang, Chicago's own. Her architecture firm is actually just a couple miles north of where we launched today. Very proud to have her. A lot of people ask, if that's the first highest building in the world designed by a woman, what's the second? Well, it's just 2 buildings over. Also nice little curves. And it has 2 floors that are empty, nothing inside them. Because most skyscrapers have about 6 to 10 feet of sway, or 6 to 15 feet of sway in the air. These 2 empty floors in the middle allow the air to go straight through it as minimal sway. I think it's less than like 5 feet of sway, which is pretty incredible. Also a Jeannie Gang piece. Gang architecture. I think that's the coolest name for an architecture firm, is Gang Architecture. And they're still in the planning phase. September 11th happens. He backpedals a little bit. Maybe I don't want to be the tallest building in the sky. Maybe I don't want to have my name on it. So instead of building the tallest building in the world, or even in Chicago, Peterson plays a little trick. The Trump Tower is made of 4 parts. A base, a smaller section, an even smaller section, and then the spire. Each of those parts is 10 to 15 feet taller than one of the taller buildings in that range. So when you look at it, it makes it look taller than it is, because you see, oh, a bunch of medium-sized buildings, the first level of the tower is 15 feet tall. A bunch of intermediate buildings, 50 feet tall. A bunch of tall buildings, 50 feet taller. It's almost as if the building itself is telling you that. I'll make no comments on that. The other thing about this building is, when Donald was making it, he wanted them to get it done by a specific due date. Now, these workers were like, we need twice the amount of time. So he gives them a bet. He says, all right, if you get it done by the time that I say, I'll pay you double. If you don't, you pay me. Or no, you do it half off. That was the deal. So they go, okay. They work their asses off, they finish in time, and he doesn't pay them. Of course, they went to court. Eventually, they got their money in the end, but that's the story of the builders there. So if you ever meet a Chicago builder who worked on the Trump Tower, it's a sore subject.
Yeah.
Never do it again.
Yeah. Never building a tower for Donald Trump again.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about the AMA Plaza, this big black box, originally the IBM building. So, Daniel Burnham is the city planner when the Chicago burns down. He calls in as many favors as he can get to get all sorts of different architects from across the world to come in. He says, we got a blank canvas. You can do what you want. One of these guys coming out of Germany is a man by the name of Mies van der Rohe, a classic modern architect. That building right there is a big black box. That's all it is. No frills, nothing else. Form follows function. That's what he thought. This was for IBM. This was in the 50s, before we had all sorts of technology, but they were still a computer company. He wanted to make this building the midpoint between human and technology. So next to this, like, just poster child for modernism, we have the Marina City Towers. These were designed by a man named Bertram Goldberg. At this point, it was white flight. Everyone down here in downtown was trying to get to the suburbs. Downtown Chicago is not a good area to be in, not a very safe area. The city officials were trying to avoid this flight. So they say, we need someone to build a city within a city. So that's what Bertram Goldberg did. Classic postmodernist style. He thought, why are we using shapes that don't exist in nature? There are no right angles in nature. We're gonna make things cylindrical, all that good stuff. A lot of people say corn cob, honeycomb, all that stuff. I had a kid say Bluetooth speaker, which kind of undercuts my point, but you know what I mean. These are very postmodern buildings. Inside at the time, they had a gym, a bar, a grocery store. They had parking. They had a bowling alley. They had a movie theater off to the side. You kind of catch a glimpse of it. Now that's the House of Blues, a pretty cool music venue. But you could literally live in Chicago and never leave your building if you wanted to.
Wow.
Now the big twist here, I've been keeping some information from these three buildings going up at the same time. The IBM building, a big black box, a great modernist piece of art. The Marina City Towers, very postmodern. Mies van der Rohe was Bertram Goldberg's teacher. So these two opposing ideals from these two guys who've known each other for so long are going up at the same time. Mies van der Rohe is a little bit older, has a little bit more pull in the city than Goldberg. He goes to them, he says, you guys owe me for all the stuff I did after the fire. We are going to move the timeline of my building up. We're also going to move it as close to the water as we can possibly get. Now, he died before any of the buildings were completed, but he got the last laugh, because now every morning when the sun rises, a shadow from the IBM building is cast on the Marina City Tower, blocking their view of the lake. That is, I can't think of a more textbook example of throwing shade. It's right there. That is my favorite story. That also marks the end of the formal narration, which means we are halfway done. Now we just gotta paddle back. I do want to take this opportunity to say thank you so much for signing up. This is my favorite thing to do. If you guys didn't sign up today, I'd be sitting back on the lot twiddling my thumbs. So thank you very much. I very much enjoyed your company, and I'm an open book, so if you have any questions on the way back, we're just going to be hanging out and chatting.
IBM was founded in our hometown,
Really?
Endicott, New York.
Huh.
And going over here a bit.
The original buildings are still there.
Wow.
Still there. The
Yeah.
IBM school,
Yeah.
where Watson like trained people to like do all that.
Our
kind of
actual
stuff.
street is named after one of the
After the
IBM.
guy that created the punch card.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like the main drag through our town is called Watson Boulevard after Watson, and like a lot of our streets are named after IBM.
So yeah, you were like, I know about IBM. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look up what exactly brought them to build a building in Chicago, and then I'll work that in the narration. Congrats, guys.
Because we're so small. So yeah, Chicago, New York, like they kind of. I think the last of the IBM
It's gone now.
factories was really nice.
How you doing?
Here we have Old Fort, looking very modern today. This is still owned by the Kennedy Estate.
Well, y'all, we made it. 6 miles. Not bad. Guys, this was a lot of fun. It was such a pleasure getting to hang out with you. I hope you all had a good time. We're good.
Absolutely.
And just impressed you at the end. How was it?
Excellent.
Yeah? How far did y'all go?
Yep.
Always,
right?
A little ways. Yeah.
So you got your stuff in the boat still?
Yeah.
And take all your stuff out this way.
Gotta get
We don't
the
have to worry
land
about it
back,
all.
right?
Yep.